Hey guys, it's Mark again. I'm going to cut it a little bit short today. I've been trying to wean these things down a little bit. Today, I want to talk about a lot of debates go on about whether evolution or God. Well, evolution explains it this, and we look for examples in nature and say, oh, here's an explanation for that. How complex is the eye was one argument that was brought up. It's too complex to be happened by accidental modifications. Um, so people are trying to use the biological evolutionary process to explain things. And what we run into in these debates, if you look very closely, there is these debates never have a burden of proof attached to them. They never prove anything. They simply use an example and use correlation and say, well, because this happened in this kind of animal or plant, then it means it can happen over here. And I want to debunk that right now, first of all, because we go into a dangerous territory where we're just simply spelling God DNA. Okay, this DNA thing, it doesn't just magically explain everything away. Oh, because DNA. You're no better. You're no better than the dogmatic religious people that you're criticizing when you simply say because DNA. We invent TV series I saw on Discover Channel once. It's like how dragons could have evolved. A flying reptile dragon was theorized. It's not really a theory because that's doing dishonesty to what a theory is. But they were simply explaining the conditions in the earth which could have forced a reptile to take flight, become large, and be called a dragon. And so that's interesting. It's fun. It's entertaining, but it is not science. So, and let me explain why. You can't just throw the letters DNA in whenever you want to explain some biological phenomenon. Oh, because DNA. It doesn't work. And here's the proof of it. DNA, the more and more we look into it, has its own built-in repair mechanisms and protections, and not everything that you can imagine in your brain is possible with DNA. And here's a prime example. Hold your hand out. Most people are going to hold out a hand that looks kind of like this. And you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits. Okay? That's programmed into a section of our DNA called the homeobox. It's the basic structure and roadmap of your species, your being. Okay? Dogs also 5, but their last toe is way up here somewhere. Horses, cows with hooves that actually do have 5 digits programmed into their bones, but some of them have recessed. Whales in the big flipper, 5 toes, 5 fingers. In their fluke, the tail, that's actually 2 feet with 5 fingers on each side. Okay, they're programmed in with 5. Sometimes the thumb doesn't appear; it just doesn't manifest, but the DNA code there for the thumb is there. So why 5? We see Ernest Hemingway's cats down in Key West. He has a collection. Is that a collection of double-pawed cats? Polydactyly. It's called polydactyly. Many fingers. We have pentadactyly. Okay, it means pentagram, penta. I don't know. Pent means 5. Pentadactyl means 5 digits, and that is programmed into every animal in the kingdom. Lizards, 5. Alligators, 5. Birds actually have 5. Bats, 5 fingers in their wings. There's a little claw on top, that's their thumb. The little thing on top, that's their thumb. And they have 4 big fingers for flapping. So this magic number 5, it through the ages, you would think it would change. And now here's, someone might hold up a hand that looks like that, and that happens. And the interesting thing about this polydactyly, many-fingered feature is that people born with that condition, that the gene for that is actually dominant. So let's imagine for a second that evolution was a real process that goes on and naturally selects the strongest genetic code, most survivable features, and moves them forward. And people with only 5 fingers, they get left behind because they can't do the same things. Okay, this guy could probably hold a basketball, a very large basketball, very easily. He could do many things that you can't do. I can't even imagine what he could do on a guitar. Okay, and it happens. But what happens is his children or children's children, eventually the DNA repairs itself. When this kind of error, it's an error. Okay, that is an error. That is, if that was the way evolution designed it, if God spelled DNA, said, whoa, let's do 6 fingers, let's do 7, let's do 10 fingers. Imagine what we could do with 10 fingers on each hand. Okay, 5-fingered people would be obsolete. So much more could be done if you had more fingers. Here's a better example: the snowshoe hare. Rabbits, like cats and rats, well, rabbits are rodents, and like rats, it's very common for them to have multiple extra toes. Now let's think that you're going to be walking across snow. Which one of us would travel easier across snow? Which one of us would magical evolution select to carry on the species? The 6-toed rabbit, 7-toed polydactyl rabbit. I'm going to pull up. I can't find the rabbit picture right now, but we have cats. We have cats. Where is it? Let's see. I had it up here, but you've all seen them. I've had them. Double pod cats. Okay? Why isn't every cat, or every rabbit for that matter, have more toes that they can have a better, firmer footing? Why is it that their children and their children's children correct this and bring it down to the very small and cumbersome 5 digits? Why don't all snowshoe hares, after one hare evolved and got a sixth toe on there, or 6th and 7th toe, a big foot that it can travel faster with, and it can push down with a large mass on snow and stay above the snow easier? Why didn't that better, more properly adapted rabbit replace the 5-toed rabbit? Snowshoe hares have 5 toes on their back, 4 toes on their front paw, because the other toe, like most animals, is a little vestigial toe up here. Like, look at your dog, look at your cat. They have a little kind of a dangling toe up there. Okay, they still have 5. Why does DNA correct this advantage? So you cannot write science fiction movies about DNA doing anything in the world when we know that DNA corrects itself. It has a program. There's things that it can do and things that it cannot do. And even if it makes a mistake, it is so ingeniously designed that when you have children, the mistake is erased. The mistake is corrected. Another good example is mules. When you mate a horse with a donkey, okay, they will bear children, but those children are not fertile. There are, I think, 2 cases in history, one in China and another one throughout history, of a mule which has gotten pregnant. Actually, I think it was a hinny. Hinnies and mules are the same thing, but one, the mother is a horse and the father is a donkey, and the other way around, the father is a donkey and the mother is a horse, whether it's a mule or a hinny. But the same thing results. But do you know what the foal was of that pregnant mule in China, do you know what came out? What it gave birth to? Do you think it gave birth to a mule? The foal was a horse, of course. Mother's a horse, father's a donkey. I hope I got that correct. I'll get them backwards. I don't have my notes in front of me. So you get a mule, you get a half breed. The half breed gets pregnant, which they never do. I mean, documented once or twice. A mule is not created. You didn't make a new species. The DNA fixed itself and is a pure horse. The child is a pure horse. So DNA does not possess the magic that Hollywood likes you to think that it does. DNA does not do the things that the designer of DNA it does what the designer tells it to do. It makes you as a human. It makes your dog Rover as a dog. It makes the Arctic hare as a rabbit, a bunny. Okay? It makes a clover as a clover. Sometimes there's a fourth leaf on there. Oh, that's cool. But guess what? When you fertilize a four-leaf clover, how many leaves do you think the seed produces? 3. There's 3 leaves on a shamrock. The mutation is repaired. DNA has a repair mechanism. You cannot arbitrarily go in there and say that, now I'm going to pull something out of some of biological examples. Some of the arguments that I'm talking about that really throw me off. I really don't like these arbitrary arguments. Let's talk about loons. Okay, here's one of the evolutionary arguments that have been thrown out there debating the Bible. Loons eat fish and lots of them. I'm reading from Inspired Evidence. Okay, this is a book by Julie Von Vett and Bruce Malone. And this talks about some of the debates that I have an issue with right now, because I don't believe there is a debate. The loon's design for fishing includes swim goggles, swim flippers, and a special valve to prevent water from going down its throat. Oh, well, why don't we just say DNA can do that? It can make goggles, it can make flippers, it can make all these things. Because look at a duck. Duck has flippers. Okay, you see, that's what I'm trying to avoid. You can't just magically say because it did here. You have to you have a burden of proof to say that DNA can be reprogrammed and rewritten to build goggles and build all these things. So the loon swimming goggles are a set of clear built-in third eyelids. These transparent eyelids, nictitating membranes, cover the eyes as the loon swims, giving it clear underwater vision. It changes the focus because if you ever take your regular eyeballs and you look underwater, everything's kind of hazy. You need to have another membrane on top that focuses in the more viscous water fluid. Okay, well, loons have that. The loon's webbed feet act like swim flippers, so it can rapidly swim through the water to catch fish. So, okay, here's a bird. It let's pretend it used to be a dinosaur, and it took to flight, which is the common, going hypothesis. And then it also decided to swim, like a penguin. Okay, well, okay. You can't just say magic DNA. You have a burden of proof to say that there was an animal before this, and then the DNA didn't repair the error in the feet. It grew these webbed feet, but it didn't used to have webbed feet. It used to look like a regular dinosaur with claws or toes, but then the DNA mutated over time, like a rabbit's foot mutates with extra toes, or like the cat's foot mutates with extra toes. And then voila, evolution selected the webbed feet. You're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to say that evolution selected, as if it's some intelligent thing that says this feature is better than that feature, because I can tell you right now, 6 fingers is a better feature than 5 fingers, and evolution said no. It said no to the snowshoe hare. Snowshoe hares born with 6 toes, their kids had 5. Oh, bummer, because mom and dad were so darn swift on the snow. Why does evolution say no? If you're going to tell me that evolution said yes to goggles and evolution said yes to webbed feet, you kind of have to prove that if you're living in a rational scientific world. But if you're just going to spell God, DNA, well, then sure, you can say whatever evolution did, whatever it wanted. All you have to do, your burden of proof ends with, well, web feet swim better in water, therefore evolution picked it. Well, I could just as easily say, web feet swim better in water, therefore God picked it. We just spell it differently, but you're still saying God. You're still not proving that whatever the loon was before, it was a web-footed bird with goggles, that the DNA was able to transform into this other thing. There's another feature of the loon. Every time the loon tries to catch fish for dinner, it opens its beak underwater. I want you to go underwater right now and open your mouth, open your beak. What happens? Oh, you get a mouthful of water, but there's a fish in front of you. Wait a second, what am I going to do? My dinner's right there. How do I eat it without drowning? Loons breathe air. How does a loon eat a fish underwater without drowning? Oh, well, so why doesn't a loon get a mouthful of water? Loons have a built-in valve that closes when water is present, thus allowing them to catch a fish without swallowing a mouthful of water. Okay, magic DNA evolved a valve. My case is closed. Magical evolution did everything. Your case is not closed. Your magical DNA produced six-toed hares and six-toed cats. And those six-toed hares and six-toed cats traveled faster and more efficiently over sand and over snow. And when they had kids, evolution said no. Well, something said no. I happen to know it's DNA. DNA said, no, we're not doing the six toes. The law says 5. Everybody gets 5. Lizards get 5. Alligators get 5. Whales get 5. Chickens get 5. Bats get 5. Humans get 5. Dogs get 5. Cats get 5. Horses get 5. Cows get 5. Rabbits aren't getting 6. Nothing's gotten 6. Except by accident. And when that six-toed thing, which has an evolutionary advantage, a better feature, something which makes it more stealthy in the snow, faster in the snow, or better traveling across the sand, and it gets that bigger advantage, that bigger paw, that evolutionary advantage disappears when the DNA repair mechanism fixes the error and goes back to, read the book, you get 5. And it fixes it and puts it back to 5. So, whatever the loon evolved from, before it was a loon, let's assume it was a bird that flew in the air, and it didn't have a valve in its throat to eat underwater, and it didn't have goggles to focus underwater, and it didn't have large webbed feet to swim underwater. Let's assume that the loon went through this process of natural selection and just arbitrarily, randomly, a bird at some point had bigger feet, and that feature stuck. A bird at some point had a valve in its throat, and because it could now eat underwater, that feature stuck. Oh wait, it can't see its dinner. So first, it had to have the goggles. So it had a nictitating membrane, a clear membrane that allowed it to close its eyelid and still be able to see. That was just an accident. I'm certain of it. And DNA didn't fix it like it fixes 6 toes. If you believe that, write your own gospel. Just write your own gospel. Because it's dogma. You aren't using science. Science says DNA repairs itself. DNA knows what the creature is supposed to look like, what the plant is, or the algae, or the bacteria, or the alligator. It knows the roadmap, the properly designed roadmap for that animal. It knows what a horse and a donkey look like. It knows they aren't the same. Now, okay, it's interesting that a horse can fertilize a donkey and vice versa. Not all the times, but sometimes there's close enough where the egg can be fertilized. And you have a baby, and the baby is got some of the features of mom and some of the features of dad, and you have a mule or a hinny. But the DNA is churning around in there saying, let me check my notes again. Let me look in the book what this thing is supposed to look like. It's well, that was a donkey and that was a horse. I'm not either one of those. So when we make babies, let's see, we're gonna have a horse. It fixes the evolutionary advantage. Mules are an advantage. Mules are strong. Mules are specifically bred because they can carry large burdens. They can plow fields. They can travel long distances. They're more fleet-footed than a donkey. They're stronger than a donkey, but they aren't as encumbered and spirited as a horse. They have the great features for farm animals, but they aren't a species. And DNA knows what it's supposed to be. It says, okay, all right, you know what? You get to live. You're a mule or you're a henny, and you know what? That's cool. Enjoy your life. Enjoy it. But your kids, you know what? I got the blueprints right here. It's going to be a horse or it's going to be a donkey. Same thing with ligers, lions and tigers. You can breed a lion and a tiger. Get a liger. The cubs, they're either lions or they're tigers. You cannot make a liger. You can't have a mommy and daddy liger. If you mate a liger and a tie-in, I think, or two ligers, a male and female liger, you're either going to have a lion or you're going to have a tiger as a cub. Same thing with a horse, a zebra and a horse. You can look up all these hybrid animals. It's cool. It's fun. You can have a unique little novelty pet, but it's not a species, and DNA fixes this thing. And when you say that evolution created the loon with goggles and swimming web feet and a valve in its throat so it can eat underwater, and you say that representing the science of evolution, then you must explain why the DNA didn't repair itself the way we observe the world happens. We observe that DNA fixes errors in its code. People who are born without the proper blueprint are fixed in the next generation. Cats are, dogs are, clover are, trees are, ligers and zorses are. So I want to put that argument to rest, that you cannot just simply substitute DNA for God and get away with winning an argument. You didn't win an argument. You need genetic research into the DNA to explain why this mutation that you say magically happened through chance selection didn't go the same way that the snow hare with multiple toes went, didn't go the same way that the polydactyl human went, didn't go the same way that the mule who had a horse or who had a donkey went. Why didn't that DNA fix itself? Because in this world, we do have DNA, and we do know that it fixes itself. You don't get away with just saying it happened. So that went a little longer than I wanted to go. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and as I come up with more ideas, I'm listening to your suggestions, and I'm very interested to hear your comments on this, especially, if you think I'm wrong, if you think that we have shown that DNA can be modified, that a beneficial feature in DNA can be modified and stick and create a new species. In other words, can we create a species of mule or a species of henny or species of tions or ligers or zorses? That'd be great. You know what? We have tried, and it doesn't work that way. DNA is an incredibly complex code. As I showed you last week, there's a $10 million prize for figuring out how it developed. It's got built-in maintenance and repair mechanisms. Damage to DNA that comes in through radiation and cosmic rays can be fixed. And it's a molecule, people. like sodium chloride, like the salt on your table. It's one molecule. It's a bunch of atoms strewn together. It is one single molecule. And it has an entire maintenance routine. It has a copying routine. It has a repair mechanism. It's segregated into sections that can, some sections can modify, which allow you to have curly hair or straight hair or blonde hair or blue eyes or mustaches or all the other things are. There's sections that it allows you to modify, and there's sections that are sacred. It says, no, you can't play around in this area, this homeobox area. I got extra protections on there. There's a routine in here is written that's going to repair it in the next generation. So let's put an end to this argument, this debate that you can get away with explaining DNA as the cause for all of evolution without some kind of burden of proof. You do have a burden of proof. Our real world observations show that when you break DNA, it fixes itself. And so these evolutionary traits that you say in the past, whether it's thousands or hundreds or millions of years ago, which created this new species, the things that you claim happened that way, didn't happen that way until you prove that it happened that way. You're going to say, oh, it's so hard. We don't even have any genetic material from that. You know what? Science is kind of cold that way. It doesn't care if proving something is hard. Being hard doesn't make it not necessary. It is necessary if you're going to argue from the point of science. It's necessary for you to show how they overcame the DNA repair mechanisms. Okay. Peace out. Enjoy.